clapping so nicely. Thank you so much. Welcome to Build. I am your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest is one of the stars of the upcoming update of the classic rom-com 4 Weddings and a Funeral. In it, Nikesh Patel plays Cash, a young would-be groom who leaves his would-be wife at the altar and begins a search for himself and who he really loves. Let's take a look.
Do we really have to go to this party? Your friends don't even like me.
What are you talking about? My friends love you.
No, they don't. They think I'm trashy and that my boobs are fake, which they are, but your friends don't know that.
Someone told me you show up for the people who matter the most to you.
From 4 Weddings and a Funeral, everyone please welcome Nikesh Patel. Hey.
Hi.
Hey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You are not the one, but kind of the only British person in this show. It's mostly Americans. I mean, there are some
There's
others.
a few, yeah, there's a few of us in there, but
Yeah.
kind of carrying the card for the Brits.
Oh yeah? Does it feel like that on the show?
No, I mean it was one of the best things about working on this actually was having that mix of voices, and you know, in terms of why I think this is an exciting undertaking to be part of was that mix of styles, and also what is in common between the two cultures, and also really kind of looking and often laughing at what's different.
I think one of the things that's exciting as well, and I know everybody is saying this, and it's important to say, is Mindy Kaling. She's incredibly delightful to watch. Her writing is wonderful.
Yeah, she's
not in the show, but you know,
no,
you can
she's the
feel her
showrunner
presence all throughout it.
100%, and it's not lost on me that would I be, you know, centered like this in a romantic comedy without Mindy being one of the vision shaping that? Probably not. And I think it's testament to her vision for why this story was worth telling in this way and doing now. And she's such a great person to collaborate with, because she's triple threat. You know, she's a writer, she's a brilliant performer, and she produces her own work. So it was really inspiring. Now,
did you have to audition for the part? Did you audition for Mindy?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
What was that process like?
Extensive. I did a few rounds in London, and then the final stage of the whole process was screen testing in LA, which I want to just remove any idea that that's a glamorous thing. It might sound it as a sentence is terrifying. You go to like an incredibly... I just really remember the air conditioning being way too high. I was in LA, and I was a Brit thinking I'm going to get to enjoy some sun, and like my nose was running because it was the aircon was jacked up so high. But yeah, I got to meet Mindy and Tracy Wigfield, who's one of the writers on the show, and yeah, that was kind of daunting, but cut to a couple of months later, and we were in London, and Mindy was on the ground with us, and we were telling the story. Was it one of those screen tests where it's not just the creators of the show, you also have like the people from the network there as well, and you're testing in front of a lot of people, or was it still somewhat intimate? Somewhat intimate. There's a weird thing that happens where you're playing, like we'd be playing the scene, and there's a camera set up on you, but then like people will be sat here where you two are, watching what the camera is picking up on a little screen. So you feel like you're in this weird hybrid of performing for camera, but then also there's like a live theatre thing going on, which you've just got to kind of ignore. But so it's basically like your audition prior to that has been in a room or self-tape, and they want to make sure that you read well on camera. Like, are you lit? Do they have lighting around you? No, it's very... It's basically the same thing as a self-tape. Yeah, big time. But and there's a I remember... There's one of the scenes for the screen test was in the first episode. There's a scene at like a meet cute that happens at the airport, and we're sorting through bags. But we just... Your dad kind of like tells you to... Yeah. But this is a scene that happens between mine and Nathalie Emmanuel's character quite early on in the first episode. And so we're meant to be sorting through luggage, but we're just in like an audition room. So they're like, oh, just maybe use some pillows or some cushions or something. And you're like, damn, this is Hollywood. You still got to make do and just like endow. I guess I got to endow these cushions with the weight of a suitcase or something. I don't know. That's in my opinion, that's like the hardest part about being an actor. Are those moments where you have to be like, okay, I got to give it all, everything that I got. I got to really believe that these pillows are luggage in front of this group of people and this camera right now in this weird room, and I still might not get this job when I walk out of here. It's one of those one of those things where
Thankfully, you got the job.
I got the job, thankfully. But also, if at any point during that process you even have a flicker of like a rational person in your head going,
exactly.
"What are you doing?" then you'll be like, I'm hefting around luggage in this heavily air-conditioned room in Los Angeles and people are watching me on a screen. Yeah, so like you kind of, I think there's a part of your brain that just has to go, nope, completely buying into this right now, even if to the outside eye, I look completely ridiculous.
Yeah, I've got nothing but respect for the actor because I only have that rational person in my brain second-guessing everything. Right. I could never do that.
Right.
What are you doing, Ricky? You look foolish. Now you get to the set, and I have to say, one of the first storylines is that your character, I think it's very well known. It's in reviews. I don't want to spoil too much, but you leave your wife or would-be wife at the altar, played by Rebecca Rittenhouse.
Yes.
I did not get that.
Right.
She's like the most effervescent, warm, beautiful character, and your character's like, nah. I'm not into it. Yeah,
as setups go for, like, here's someone that you're going to root for across 10 episodes. It's quite an interesting way to set up the show. But yeah, I think it speaks to...
Well, that's a lot of work for you to invest in his... You suddenly have to make the audience really invest in his existential dilemma.
Yes.
It's a lot of work for you because I think most audience members are going to go, even if you're not 100% in love, you can figure this out.
Right,
like, you can make this work.
100%. But I think it's interesting because it taps into... And Cash has this chance encounter with Nathalie's character, Maya, where the two of them are able to sort of unburden free from the expectation that they're ever going to see each other again. So you have this thing about how you can be really honest with a stranger and you'll be like, oh, have you ever felt like this? And she says something about, have you ever felt like you're living your life for other people? Which really strikes a chord with him because I think without giving too much away, there is something that feels quite put together and successful about Cash when we first meet him. He's got this high-flying career as an investment banker. He's got this group of friends. He's got this, as you point out, this gorgeous girlfriend who, on paper, that's a very happy relationship. But I think he's also someone that realizes he's slightly, shuffling his way into living a life that isn't particularly fulfilling for him because of
he's
maybe
coasting.
Or living it. Or trying to marry up to expectations that maybe he feels are imposed on him by, I don't know, his friends, his family, his society. Which is one of the really exciting things about playing it was that feels like a particularly modern problem to have. This show tackles what it's like to find fulfillment and in a way that feels very relevant to now. So there was something, the joy of playing this character that, apart from... right at the beginning of the first episode where you might be like, okay, I'm questioning your decisions at the moment, dude. But there is something, I think, relatable about, and in some ways, I think, I'm going to come out to bat for him, brave about ripping off the blaster as horrifically as he does. So it was a joy to play and also have the time to explore that over 10 episodes.
When did you start acting? How did you start acting?
So I started professionally about 9 years ago, but I wasn't someone who was singing show tunes when I was 7 years old. I was it came upon me quite gradually. Weirdly, I have a bit of a parallel journey to that of Cash in the show because I went through school thinking I did very well academically. I was sort of a smart kid, and luckily I was funny enough not to be deeply unpopular. That weird time where at school you're suddenly asked to make decisions about what you're going to do for the rest of your life, and you're like 15. I mean, I'm still struggle to answer that question now, but and I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll be an investment banker or like be a one of those careers where I wear a suit and I kind of do well and... Businessman. Until I started studying what that required and had a real problem because I found it incredibly boring. So there was a kind of slow creep for myself towards embracing, I guess, the arts. I grew up loving stories. There was never a conscious thing of I want to be a storyteller. But I sort of cut a deal, I like to think, with my parents of going to university and going, I'm going to study English literature because I'm very passionate about it, so I can get a good degree, and then I can, think about the serious stuff.
But I also think that's, in my opinion, who's to say, but in my opinion, that's a better way to move into a specialty in the arts at a certain point, because everything stems from literature.
Right.
All the stories, however they're being told, especially in TV right now, stem from literature.
But also, I think there's something to be said for there's not necessarily a prescribed path that one has to follow to end up. One of my friends from that I trained with at drama school studied maths at university and is now an actor. So, there is no set path. For me, it just so happened that studying literature meant I could indulge this sort of side passion of wanting to be in plays.
But do you feel like, having read the classics, and maybe not all of them, but I'm sure a fair amount of them, studying literature gives you sometimes a leg up in understanding the scripts and understanding where your showrunners or creators are coming from when you sit down and talk to them?
I think so. Yeah, maybe. It does wonders for your imagination because you're encouraged, doing things like Shakespeare, for example. I was a big Shakespeare nerd when I was studying, and that's sort of how I got into acting.
What's your favorite Shakespeare play? Do you have one?
I'm picking a child. I really like Henry IV Part 1. Yeah, I think Hal's journey from prince to king in that is really, really.
You can tell you're not lying about being a Shakespeare nerd, because you picked a pretty esoteric.
Was that niche? Oh, okay, I don't know.
Romeo and Juliet.
It's probably not Romeo and Juliet because it's wonderful, but
it's overdone. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
If you're a big fan of Shakespeare or any kind of creator, usually your favorite one is not the one that everybody knows and talks about.
I feel like the problem a lot of the time when you go and see Romeo and Juliet is it's really long and you wish they were dead before they are dead, and then eventually it ends. But yeah, going back to your earlier question, I think there's something about, for me anyway, a grounding in literature and those really classic stories. It fired my imagination. That's sort of, if I can identify any kind of through line for me from where I was as a kid to where I got now, is I love stories. So, and I consume them in loads of different ways, whether it was, reading, I grew up loving reading about myths. I used to watch loads of TV, and it was always, ranging from Thundercats to, there was this epic Indian serialization called the Mahabharata, which was this sweeping story of good versus evil. I used to watch with my mum. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So it's a real mix of stuff.
Did you grow up in the UK?
I grew up in London, yeah.
Yeah.
And being exposed to, from a very early age, just so many influences. So yeah, I think maybe studying literature in a way was a continuation of that, and a way for me to prolong getting to play with stories. And then somewhere along the line, when I started doing plays, I kind of realized, I don't just want to consume them, I want to be part of telling them. And yeah, that was a bit of an epiphany moment for me. And I feel like
do you remember that moment?
I think it was just when I got to the end of university and I got to my finals, and I suddenly had a moment where I realized I was spending more time learning lines than I was studying for my exams. And I still didn't really have a sense of this profession that you could get into. It wasn't my family background wasn't no way linked to that. My parents are both pharmacists. That one bit of careers advice to me was don't be a pharmacist. So I listened.
Except when you told them that you wanted to be an actor, they're like, no, be a pharmacist.
Yeah, is that a boy? No. Yeah, it was interesting. So it was only when I had friends who maybe did have those experiences or did have those reference points saying to me, have you thought about applying to drama school? And my answer wasn't too far from what's that? And so I sort of immersed myself in kind of doing my research, and that was my path eventually. It was after university I got into drama school and then started working after that. And I think it is individual for everyone. I don't want to sit here and say that's the only route into the industry. I think what's exciting is it pulls in people from all walks of life, and some people, you know, you hear about people getting street cast, or people do, you know, youth theatre or whatever. But for me, it was invaluable because I got a real grounding in what it took to, you know, the discipline required, but also room for 3 years to like screw things up and be terrible and fail and learn from that, which I don't think you always get when you start working. It's much harder. What
did your parents say when you told them that you were going to go to drama school?
I think they were.
That's not part of the deal.
Yeah, no. They've always been incredibly supportive. I think they were worried, understandably, because it was so far outside of their comfort zone. But also, they knew that when I commit to something, I take it very seriously, and I don't half-ass things. So they.
It's so hard for parents in that situation, though, because they know that at that point there's no advice, really, for the rest of your life within your career that they're going to be able to give you.
Yeah, they were practical about it. They said, give yourself 1 year to apply for drama school. So it wasn't completely airy-fairy, you can do what you like. It's like, give yourself 1 year to apply for drama school, and if it doesn't work out, then go for plan B. And yeah, I'm lucky that it did work out.
How long did it take after drama school to start landing roles?
I was very fortunate. I got my first role while I was in my final year. So I went and did a play at the Royal Court, which is an amazing kind of new writing theatre in London, and so many wonderful plays have come out of there. So yeah, I did the show called Disconnect out of there. And then yeah, after that, you know, early part of my career, mainly doing theatre and getting to work with amazing actors and some really wonderful theatres.
You know, going from drama school and loving Shakespeare and, you know, having your first role be at the Royal Court, the type of performance that comes with Four Weddings and a Funeral, I'd imagine, is a lot different than the way that you perform. Everything is kind of rooted in contemporary pop culture, contemporary interaction. So in some ways, as much as it's a comedy and broad at times, it's a fairly subtle style of acting, I would imagine, at times. Or not. I mean, how would you describe it?
I think you're spot on, and it feels weirdly playing this role felt weirdly transformative for me. And I think because so often as an actor, you aspire to, or you're asked to change your voice or your physicality, or play someone that's quite different to you. And that was certain that there's certainly huge appeal to being able to do that and explore those kind of characters. But then for something like this to come along, where actually, when you come down to it, I had so much already in common with this character, and yet I'd never had a chance to play him. Right. And in some ways, I sort of realized that I'd never had a chance to be myself, because I think a lot of the time, and I've been very fortunate in my career, I have to say, but a lot of the time, particularly as an actor of colour, or I guess as someone who isn't always represented or doesn't have a tradition of being represented well on screen, the parts that come your way don't feel like real people. And so there's a bit of a negotiation of going like, all right, there's a bit of a skeleton here, but can I put some flesh on it and make it someone that has, like, you know, the same hopes and dreams and feels real. Whereas, playing Cash felt like I got to put so much of myself into him, which was really freeing. You know, getting to play a Londoner, and getting to be part of a depiction of this show is a love letter to my city, and it feels really great to be able to be part of that, and also shine a light on and stretch the definition of what people might come to expect when they think about what is British, what is London. One of the joys of being where I come from is that London is many things and many people, and so yeah, it was great.
Yet it's rarely represented that way,
right? Particularly in a genre like this, and you know that has the potential to go out to such a wide audience. So yeah, in some ways, I guess it is very different from like doing, I don't know, a classical role or something. But I realised that it was scratching an itch that I hadn't had a chance to express myself in that way.
Was it more or less difficult to perform as something much closer to you that I imagine requires you just physically to go inward a little bit more while you're on camera, while you're performing, versus something that is a skeleton that you have to project an idea very quickly as to who and what that person is?
I think there are challenges either way. I think sometimes the good thing about playing, about stepping into the shoes of a character that on paper is very different to you, is that you have to do a lot of homework, and play that game of like, okay, what if it was me as if I was alive in 1932 and whatever it might be. And sometimes there's a pitfall when you play someone that you think, oh, I get this guy, I'm very similar to him, that you don't do your homework. There's just a lot of ease that comes with playing someone, you know, even things like, you know, ad-libbing or improvising, of which there was a little bit that happened in the show. The scripts were so good, but they also supported a little bit of, you know, if we want to, especially with some of the brilliant comic actors that we had, chuck a little line in or something. All that stuff, you already have a shorthand because he talks like I talk.
Right. I think we have time for a couple questions from the audience. Who has a question? Hey.
We actually have a question from our site, buildseries.com. They're wondering, was improvisation allowed on set, and did any make it into the final series?
I think we answered the first one.
Well-timed, yeah.
Did any make it into the final series?
Yes, it did. I mean, one of the gifts of working on such an ensemble show is there's a lot of really funny people, and a lot of characters that we get to meet along the way. But there's the iconic. I don't know if I can cuss on AOL Build, but there's okay, yeah. So there's the iconic scene at the start, which is taken by Nathalie, which is just the word "fuck" over and over and over again, as she tries to extricate herself from this awkward situation that she.
I actually loved what Mindy did with this versus the original, where in the original it's just Hugh Grant and his friend saying "fuck" over and over again. In this, we see all of the characters, or at least 3 to 5 of the characters, in different places, having the same reaction, saying the same word. Yeah,
it's very cleverly, after that setup scene, it's very cleverly threaded through the series, through the first episode rather. And there was a moment, and I remember getting the script and going, oh, that's really fun, and then kind of to myself going, I wish I got to say it. But we do. There's a scene right at the end of the episode where Cash is getting ready to, you know, step out to get married, and he has a moment where he looks himself in the eye in the mirror, and it wasn't scripted, but I just gave myself a little kind of like fuck, which felt very kind of freeing, but also a little sort of hat tip. But in terms of like examples of improvisation, I mean there are lines throughout the show where I've watched it. I mean, I think John Reynolds has a line in the trailer in response to the Denzel Washington impression where he goes, "Genuinely upsets me when you do that," which that was in the moment.
One more question.
Hi there. I was curious if you had any crazy or funny audition stories from before you booked this.
Crazy audition stories. I mean, yeah, there was one for a short film. This was very, very early on when I was very green and just like eager to please and just wanted to get a job. And it was the scene that was required. It was quite an impressionistic short, so there wasn't a lot of dialogue, but there was like a bit of a foot chase. And so my character gets chased by like a group of thugs, falls on the floor, and then gets up and starts running. And I'm in this, I had no idea what to expect from the audition. And then the director's like, right, so, you know, it's going to be quite dynamic, the action sequence. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And, you know, thinking to myself, like, I did acrobatics at drama school. I can handle this. Not realizing that a key difference between, you know, being on stage and filming stuff is real. So that, like, you've got a cell being banged up by going for it. So he's like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up a camera here, and I'll just have you run down the corridor and like fall. And so I did what I can only imagine was like an incredibly like theatrical fall. And he was like, okay, maybe a bit more real. So my entire audition was just like over and over again, me like stacking it. And
you
the kind
actors,
of
like
we're idiots. We'll say yes to anything. Can you ride a horse? Yes. Get to the job. Okay, how am I going to pull this one off?
Nothing but respect for you guys.
Yeah.
I would like one fall, and I would be like, no, that's fine. You got it. I'm
You
going
say
home.
respect. It's also kind of an idiotic way to approach trying to get a job, but yeah.
But that's the job.
That is the job.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an approach getting a job. That is the job. That is what's required of
Right.
you. And you have like years of training to show up one morning and fall down 6 times or 7 times.
Well, I remember being on the job, and
Oh, you got the job.
I got the job, which is nice. But then on the job, it still hadn't sunk in that, of course, this is filming. So you do the same thing over and over again. So there I was thinking like, that kind of mashed up my knees. But hey, I'll only have to do it once. It's like, no. We've got to go take after take after take. And also in this short film, and it was just as he was blowing up, was Tom Hardy, which is very cool. Mm-hmm. I think he just caught sight of this like panicked kid looking at his like shredded up trousers going, this guy has no idea what's going on. And so he just came up to me, he's like, mate, do you know what you're doing? And I was like, no, I don't. And I got a stunt lesson from Tom Hardy, and he was like, and on the day he was like, right, we need this equipment, I need pads, we need to put that here, and he like demonstrated the stunt for me. So yeah, it was.
He was like, this is what you have to ask for. This is how you have to do it, because you like didn't want to ask for anything.
Right.
Just,
yeah. And it's that thing of like not realizing when it's okay to kind of just stop and go, hang on, I'm going to smash my knees if we don't do this properly. So
they'll just go. They'll just keep you ready. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
You actually need to be the person to go, hey, can we take a second? I need to figure out how to roll properly or do this thing.
But also it's easier when like Tom Hardy stops things and goes, we need to take a minute, right? So thank you, Tom.
Nikesh, it's been wonderful talking to you. The show premieres tomorrow on Hulu, right?
Yes, 4 episodes drop tomorrow.
And it's so fun. It's such a wonderful show, and it's a great updating and accompaniment of, I think, of the movie as well. Everybody put your hands together for Nikesh Patel. Let's hear it.
Thank you very much.